Today I'm going to start a project just for me. I've been stressing trying to get a whole bunch of stuff done recently, and this has been sitting since I picked it up at the flea market, calling my name. And I've decided that the hell with it, I am going to do a project for me and start the restoration on this pilot radio. Now somebody has already refinished the cabinet at some point in its history, and it's in fairly good condition. It won't take a lot. I don't think I'll strip it. I will probably just put some overstain on it and give it a coat of I don't know, tung oil or something, clean it up. I'm not a cabinet restoration expert, but the fact that it's been restored is fairly obvious. The pilot logo that's supposed to be here is missing, as are the on volume, tone control, band, and tuning decals. Those are missing. Believe it or not, these knobs are original. They show up on the Sam's Photofax. You can see those silly looking knobs there. And in fact, this one has a little white indicator on the edge for the band switch. The others don't because it's not needed. The tone control is just a potentiometer. Volume and tuning wouldn't have any need for a reference line. I have some paint that will match what appears to be the original gold color on these two grills. Fortunately, neither one of these has been dented or damaged in any way. My concern here is cleaning these up, getting all the crap out of the holes, sanding them, and then spray painting them without having the paint fill all the holes in. The holes this small, the paint tends to make little feathers and whiskers, and I'll figure something out. I got this radio. First of all, it just looked different, and it has some very unique features. Now, I'm not an expert on doing these radios, and typically I don't restore these radios because everybody else in the world does it, or at least I don't do it on camera. I do a couple of units a year for friends. And I don't know, just figured this one might be a fun project to take on. It's a fairly unique radio. I cannot find any photographs of this, nor can I find anybody, or other than like on Nostalgia Air, and they have this picture off of Sam's Photofax folder. I can't find a radio that anyone's restored. Let's get back on subject here. At any rate, this radio has some unique features. It has an electrodynamic speaker using the field coil on the speaker as a choke. Not unusual for radios of this vintage, but fairly unusual, at least to me. I don't think I've ever seen that configuration on an AC/DC or transformerless set. These were true AC/DC sets. They will work on 120 volts AC or DC. Another unique feature on this one is the pilot lamp is across the 120 volt line with a dropping resistor. And it turns out it's actually a C7 lamp. That's one of those Christmas tree type screw base bulbs. It's about that tall. So it's a C7 lamp with a 600 ohm dropping resistor, and it's directly across the AC line. Typically on these radios, it's a 6 volt number 47, and it's in parallel with one of the tubes. And on these AC/DC sets, one of the characteristics would be when you turn the set on cold, the dial lamp or pilot lamp would come on intensely white just for a second or two, and then dim down, almost go out, and then slowly come back to a normal brilliance as the tube filaments warmed up. And it usually meant that the number 47 lamp didn't live very long. But this appears to be a different configuration. So two things that are different off the bat: field coil on an AC/DC set and a pilot lamp across the line. I don't think I've ever seen that in this type of set before. And again, I'm not an expert on this. I don't do hundreds of these restorations. Another unique feature for this radio is it has an RF amplifier in the front end. Most of these All-American 5 type radios simply have the converter tube in the front end, first IF, then the it's converter, first IF, second IF, And then you have a detector, an audio frequency preamp, and then your audio amplifier. But this one actually has an RF amp in the front end. That's somewhat unusual. A lot of these sets only had a switch for high or low tone. This one's actually got a volume control for the tone, or a potentiometer for the tone. And basically it's just a high cut. The more the less the resistance is, the more the capacitor cuts the high frequency sections. It's not like a bass boost circuit or anything. Let's see what else is unique about this. I guess that's all that stands out at the moment. I have both the SAMs, and I have a copy of the riders for this radio. I tend to go with SAMs because they're usually far more detailed than the riders. They go into the complete parts layout. They have complete parts listing. The alignment sections on both of these are pretty much the same. I've read through both of them. They pretty much say the same thing using the same dummy antenna. The schematic on the riders does have an extra page describing how the switch on the back inserts the loop antenna on both AM and short wave. So between the two of these, I've got all the information I'm going to need to restore this. Let's take a quick look. First thing I've got to do is find an adhesive to put these knobs back together. You can't use super glue or anything of that ilk because it will frost the plastic and just make a mess of it. I'm probably going to try some clear 5-minute epoxy, but I've got to be careful. If I put too much epoxy around there, when I push this on, it'll squeeze out the sides. I have no idea what they used originally. Only one of these is still being held firmly on, and that's this one. And it turns out it's the one with the indicator on it that I'm probably going to have to reposition, but that guy is really on there. But I've got to see if I can get it apart so I can get it cleaned up and put back together. We'll figure something out. I've got some new felt washers on the way. One of those was missing, and I ordered a couple of dozen of them to have them on stock. My supply of felt washers was missing. The radio has the back, which is often missing on these early sets, and I was very pleased to see the back was intact. This is not original. In fact, I think I'm going to remove that right now. This appears to be some sort of homemade loop, perhaps. I don't know what this was intended to do, but it's not original, and we'll just pop it off of there. Yeah, it's some kind of external loop antenna. I don't know what they were using that for. The original decal is still on the back, and it's, oh, there we go, AC DC, voltage 100 to 125, 39 watts. Licensed under RCA. Trimmer, do not change setting. Attach outside antenna here. Looks like I've got a little bit of gluing to do in the cabinet here. The early plywood is coming apart. We'll take a syringe. We'll get some Elmer's glue or something of that ilk inside there and clamp that back together. Clean that up. I got to be careful. I can hear the speaker flopping around inside. And the bottom's in fairly decent shape. A little piece of the wood has chipped off of here because the adhesive has failed. I'll probably see if I can find some more of these felt feet. If not, I'll put some rubber feet on here. It's got most of the original label on the bottom. Gives you the tube complement where they go. Pilot Radio Corp, Long Island, blah blah blah, Underwriters Lab. Looks like all the original hardware is still in the base. A few different screws here. We've got a couple slotted ones. We'll change everything out to one type. Let me get the back off of this. We have the back off of the T511, and the internal loop antenna appears to be in good condition. Somebody has soldered the connections at some point in time, but the little loading coil in here is still in good shape. The mica trimmer looks serviceable. Oh, and I did find a picture. I went and took a quick look on the internet again. A little piece of wood from somewhere. We'll probably have to save that. I took a quick look in the internet and I found this picture, and that leads me to believe I do have the correct paint to paint those grills. And you can see in this photograph that the decals behind the knobs still exist, but the Pilot logo is missing from the center on his also. Probably went away when they refinished the cabinet, and I haven't had no luck finding the correct decals, or finding decals at all for Pilot. You can find them for Zenith, you can find them for Philco, you can find them for RCA, you can find them for Westinghouse, hundreds of different radios, but I haven't found anything for Pilot yet. Looks like we have a little bit more work to do here on the cabinet on the back. We'll squirt some glue in there, clamp that together and put it back together, but all in all, not in bad shape. The first view inside the cabinet seems promising. The tuning capacitor is in good shape. It appears the dial cord is broken or slipped off, but that's easy to fix. The Sam's manual tells us how to restring that. It appears we have original screws holding the chassis in, which is nice. RCA tubes. Let's see if this one's an RCA. I can't tell. Come on. No, that's a Raytheon. But it appears everything else is RCA. We've got the original placard in the inside over there, Pilot Radio Corporation. I wonder if that's the correct font. Maybe I can duplicate that somehow on the computer and make a decal. I'd like to find the real thing. It looks like that C7 lamp is hiding up behind there. Let's get this out of the box and see what it looks like. Okay, it appears that this receiver is untouched. I'm looking through here. We appear to have the original Pilot electrolytics with their own logo on it. It's full of waxy paper caps from the period. I don't know if these are Pilot as well. Probably not. But I don't see any names on them. I'll have to roll them over and find out. But we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, at least 15 waxy paper caps that have to go. This thing is pretty compact, and those original 40 microfarad 250 volt capacitors, I'm sure, are well past their sell-by date, so they'll have to go. We'll check all the resistors. We won't do that online. We're not going to bore you to tears with all of that, but we're just doing a quick assessment of this thing at the moment to see what we're up against. The dial cord is indeed broken. Oh, and there's our dial lamp, and there's our C7 bulb. Now, this lamp, believe it or not, is still good. It's still intact. I was amazed to see an intact filament, and it's not the filament we're used to seeing. I'm going to power this thing up, turn some lights out here, and I'm going to power it up at low voltage so you can get a look at the filament that's on this. It's rather unique. This should show up on camera, I hope. And there we go. Can you see that? I hope that's clear and in focus. Oops, that's a very unique filament. It almost looks like a carbon filament. It could possibly be, I guess. This radio dates from 1947, but it's either that or a very dark colored tungsten. But it's in a little coil, and it's fully intact, so that's kind of nice to see. Probably because it has a 610 ohm resistor in series with it. It never comes up to full brilliance, and probably lasted a very long time in these sets. So I've got my work cut out for me there. We'll be digging in to our stock of capacitors. The speaker, the backing board, the screws have pulled out long ago, and there's some repair work to do in there. The cone is intact, however, I don't know if you can hear that. Oh, it's going away. Yeah, there is some rubbing on the cone. From the amount of rust, I would suspect the humidity has rusted the central post. The speaker cone itself does not appear to be warped, so it's probably rust buildup on the center post on the magnet on the field. However, it gets worse there, gets better there. If it's pulled to one side a little bit, it quiets down, so I may be able to do the old shrink, moisten and shrink thing on one side. I saw that done. A guy on YouTube. I'll have to look it up again and see what I can do to move the cone a little bit to one side. But we should be able to save that, I hope. That'll be a tough speaker to replace. The radio has the schematic, complete schematic on the inside of the cabinet, which is somewhat unusual. And we'll put this aside for the moment and see what else. There we go. This is going to come right out, I think. And there's a gold colored grill cloth on the back so that when the light hits this, you don't have a big dark circle where the speaker would be. We'll have to remove this cardboard from here. Yep, looks like it's going to come out. There we go. And well, that was a fairly nice color when it was new, but well past its sell-by date. We'll have to see what we can do to replace it. I'll build a wooden block to fit inside of here so that I can sand this front surface. I have to be very careful. This is very thin aluminum. This is like 30 thousandths thick, so it doesn't have a lot of strength. But if I back it up with a wooden block, I'll be able to sand this, get it clean so I can repaint it. And we'll do the same to the other side. The other side appears to have stayed in place. We'll have to see what we have to go through to dig that out and get it out of there. I'm not sure how they're holding it in. I don't see any screws. Oh, yep, there's one screw up here. Oh yes, three screws. I should be able to get the dial out. And this may be stapled. I'll have to pull the staples out and redo that and get everything cleaned up. We'll pull that out, get the cabinet restored. And next time you see this, I hopefully will have the chassis electrically restored. We're going to do the actual work down here where I have my parts and a little bit better lighting. But we will move up to the $10 test bench when it comes time to do an alignment on this radio, and we'll do that with our vintage or our correct period equipment from the era from the 1940s. Most of the test equipment I have up there now is from 1947, 48, 50 range. So it'll be fitting to do the alignment of this receiver on that equipment up on the $10 bench. Continuing our evaluation here, I had read somewhere that Pilot was known for building quality into their radios. They didn't make, they weren't as popular as a lot of the other manufacturers, but they built quality in, and I just discovered something. This end piece of the chassis is held on with 4 screws and is removable, as is the opposite end, which is going to make servicing this a whole lot easier for getting down in here and taking these capacitors off of this oscillator coil and getting down in here and changing some of these capacitors, and or if it needs resistors changed on the opposite end, it's going to be much easier to get in here from the side than it would be from the top, especially down here next to this oscillator coil. So that's going to save some heartache. And I have noticed what appears to be 2 modern resistors, yet they are deeply buried into the receiver, and from the coloration of the solder, it doesn't look like this has ever been worked on. The fact that it has Pilot capacitors here and here, and all of the waxy caps, those are solars down in here, these greenish colored, These are solar caps. They were a well-known manufacturer. I used to have one of their capacitor testers at one time. Let's roll this over and see who made these other ones. These are Sprague's. That's a Sprague cap, so from the coloration I'd say all the rest of these are Sprague as well. They certainly look like it. So we have Sprague capacitors, Pilot branded electrolytics, and solar capacitors. So it was all quality components in this unit. These two resistors are a mystery to me. Perhaps by then somebody was making this Allen Bradley style resistor. And again, I'm looking down in there and I do not see any solder joints that have been disturbed in this receiver. I'm gotta believe those have been in there since day one. So evidently those were starting to be manufactured by 1947 would be my guess. Again, I'm not an authority on this, but those are so buried, and those solder joints have never been touched from as far as I can tell. Usually it's pretty obvious when something's been changed, and it doesn't look like they've ever been touched. Okay, before I start the restoration on this thing, I have to know, just have to know if this thing works at all. And so we're very carefully going to bring it up using the Heathkit isolated AC supply up there. We're going to keep an eye on the B plus voltage. That will be back here on this meter. We'll be bringing it up with that. And let's see if this has any life in it at all. I did the calculation, 35 watts, 120 volts. This thing should draw slightly less than 200 milliamperes, so we'll keep an eye on the current. Let's see, we'll turn it on. That's on, that's on. Let's bring this up to 30 volts to start and see what happens. And it looks like about 100 milliamperes at this point in time. Up there on the Heathkit. We'll just keep this down here. There's no sense jumping back and forth. 30 volts, less than 100 milliamperes. That's probably just tube filaments. I'm bringing it up. We're up 60 volts. I'm seeing life on the dial lamp. Nothing yet on the B plus. But then that probably won't happen until about 80 or 90 volts when the filaments really start to warm up. I don't see any activity in the filaments, tube filaments yet. Oh, wait a minute, there's a little glow in the audio amplifier. What's that, a 35L6 or something? I think it's a 35L6. I'm not hearing anything yet, but we're still under around 100 milliamperes. The dial lamp's getting a little brighter. Whoa, we've got B plus happening. We've got B plus happening. Let's see, that's on the 50 volt range. We'll go up to the 150 volt range. So right now we got about 50 volts of B plus and climbing. Let's see. There's 90 volts AC, about 60 volts of B plus. Nothing yet. Let's go a little higher. There's 90. We're coming up on 300 milliamperes. Maybe I should stop there. Oh!
What is unknown
there we go.
is the amount of support they had planning the attack. Police have conducted raids in 2 neighborhoods in London, Barking and East Ham. 12 people have been picked up in those raids.
Fox's Mike Tobin in London. President Trump reacting to the attack, offering condolences on social media, and he is responding by using a lot of the same rhetoric.
That's at 90, 100, 110.
At the time, for political correctness, is over. He's also
And there's about 117. About 80 volts on that capacitor.
Which he believes is needed now more than ever. He said on Twitter, quote, "We need to be
It's not even humming.
vigilant and tough." Fox's Kristen Fisher at the White House, Virginia Democrat Senator Mark Warner.
And the speaker doesn't sound too bad.
Would be a slap in the face to
Yeah, it's got a little rattle in it.
Muslim Americans and others in
A
many
little
ways
bit of a rattle in it.
Incite more incidents.
Warner on CBS's Face the Nation. An emotional Ariana Grande returns to Manchester.
I love you guys so much, and I think that the kind of love
There we go. If I can pull the comb down a little bit.
really needs right now.
2 weeks after the suicide bombing that killed 22, Grande holding a benefit at the city's Old Trafford cricket ground. Katy Perry also taking part.
Love conquers fear, and love conquers hate.
Courtesy One Love Manchester.
Even the
Market.
controls are quiet. Incredible. Let's see what else we got. Okay. Looks like a one-hit wonder at this point in time. It probably needs a serious alignment, and I'm sure some of those capacitors down there are no good.
Weather desk. Weather on News Radio 610. Rainfall continuing to move in ahead of the next slow-moving system. Temperatures overnight slowly fading back through the 50s, which is where our highs will be for our Monday. Look for temperatures between 56 and 60 in the afternoon, with periods of rainfall which could be locally heavy at times. Still some lingering showers around later Monday
All right.
night and into Tuesday. Highs Tuesday.
The speaker actually sounds like it's getting better. It may just be a case of letting the rust work its way out.
Wednesday afternoon. From the Storm Watch 9 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kevin Skarupa.
Hey everybody, I'm Eric Church, asking you to join me in the fight against leukemia,
Wow.
cancer, and AIDS through the T.J. Martell Foundation. Your support helps facilitate cutting-edge research. that will
That's
lead to more
great.
effective
That's good
treatments and
news.
save more
I guess we ought to wrap this up.
for a cure.
We, of course, have to get underneath there and change those capacitors. We know the waxy caps are bad. I mean, let's face it. 1947, these caps are no longer safe to leave running in the radio. But if you need any evidence that Pilot made a quality piece of equipment, there it is. Even the electrolytics are fine, or not humming anyway. How long they would live without failing is anybody's guess. Who knows? They could go another 2 years, but they should be changed. So now I know when I do take it apart and put new caps in, it was working beforehand, so if it's not working after, I did something wrong. I'm the Radio Mechanic. Thanks for stopping by. We'll continue this in part 2.